Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another edition of the New Era podcast. I'm your co host, M2 Dave, and I'm here with my co host, MK Tom Brady.
What's up, everyone?
Also, today we have a special guest with us today. Perhaps,
Hey, hey, how's
perhaps,
it going, everyone? Forever King here.
perhaps, King, I was going to give you an introduction, man. Come on.
Oh, my bad. You stopped
Yeah,
talking
it's
for
all
a
right.
second.
No, it's all right. I was thinking, I was like, not perhaps, certainly the most decorated Batman player of all time. Obviously, you guys know what he did at MK9, so it's obviously part of the Ohio local scene for a very, very long time. So I'm very, very happy to have Forever King on this podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So, folks, just didn't get back from CEO. Not, I got back not too long ago. Let me first give a shout out to Jabali. I think he did a phenomenal job running the tournament. It kind of reminded me of the golden MLG era for MK as well as Tekken. Lots of setups, huge venue, food courts, lots of bathrooms, etc., etc. AC, obviously, you guys know how Florida is. Very hot down there. Venue was perfect. So shout outs to Jabali and his staff. I talked to a lot of the volunteers slash employees, staff, etc. Um, I gave all of them props. So, by any chance they're listening to this, you guys did an exceptional job, and I would be happy to return at any moment to take part, to participate in such a well-run, organized tournament. So, props to those guys. Um, let's talk about perhaps. I guess the most recent news is about the numbers for each fighting game at this year's Evo. I forget when exactly it is. It's in July. Sometimes, guys, pardon me, I forget the exact date, but maybe we can start off with that and discuss again the registration numbers that were posted on Twitter. We have Streets Fight. I'm just gonna give a I won't read all the numbers. About 5,000 plus, taking 4,000 plus. Guilty Gear third place, about 2,000 plus. Grand Blue Grand Blue Fantasy versus Rising, about 1,000 plus. So Third Strike is about 1,000 plus as well. Under Night in Birth, about 800. Mortal Kombat sitting in seventh place, about 600 plus. And then the last game we have King of Fighters, about 300, about 400 almost. Um, let's start with Forever King. Any comments on this? Does anything surprise you? What say you?
It is crazy how much Tekken and Street Fighter are blowing up in these recent years. I remember back during like MKX and Injustice 2, NRS was like one of the biggest. Like MKX at Evo got like 1,500 entrants or something like that. And then I remember Injustice 2 at like Combo Breaker and CEO, they had like over 400 entrants. And that was big for its time. But for some reason, in most recent years, we didn't continue growing. Like we just stayed at that size, or we still did. We never surpassed our MKX numbers. I don't think.
Yeah, I don't have all the numbers in front of me, so I apologize. Um, I mean, what do you attribute this to? There's a lot of discussion about this. There are people, quite frankly, who blame people like Tom and me, like we're the problem. Like, why are you guys so negative? Like, if you guys praised NRS more, then I don't know, something magical would happen. And then there's people
Well, just to give
who
some numbers here for King.
go
So
ahead.
we did have some growth here. We had in 2015 MKX Evo had 1,162 entrants. That's the first Evo within the first year of MKX. Within the first year of MK11, Evo had 1,575.
That was the
So,
one.
uh, but it was going up. Problem is in MK11, everybody realized we don't like this, and then it started to plummet down, and that's when a lot of the cope happened, and now we're kind of where we are.
I do think a big part of it is the Pro Tour. Um, Street Fighter got announced to have $1 million Pro Tour, and we just assumed, NRS like Mortal Kombat makes more money than Street Fighter, so they're gonna match that $1 million for the pot bonus for the final combat. But when that didn't happen. And then each major is like a 10K pot. But like during Injustice 2, each major was a 20K pot. So we're just like going down. I think Injustice 2 even had more money on the line for like their versions of Final Combat and E League and stuff like that. So it is kind of demotivating when the other fighting games that are in that same FGC, they have bigger prize pots. You know what I mean? More to fight for. But
So you don't.
I don't think the negativity from like content creators, I don't think that really attributes to less entrants at tournaments. You know, people if people want to go, they'll go, regardless of what content creators on YouTube are saying.
Yeah, and
I mean,
in
is
case people are
go
wondering,
ahead.
by
Go
the
ahead.
way, I'll even go back to the beginning of the NRS era. Well, go ahead and make your point, King, and then I'll go ahead because I have the numbers here.
That was it. That was the end of my statement.
Um, so I looked at the numbers because I know everyone's going to say NRS in its first year we've always gone badly. So MK9 was, I believe, right around like 500 at the first Evo. At the second Evo, it did have a small drop off. Uh, so we're looking 2011, but it was still competitive with some of the other games that were there. In the 2012 Evo, it still had 304. Um, so it was still, this is our first time, like, but we were still much bigger than like other games, like games like Tekken, things of that nature. And when it was still like the big three, it was like MK was just under the Capcom umbrella. Like we were beating Tekken all the time. Even by its third year, I mean, well, it made it to three Evos. It's the only MK to make it to three official games because of how well it was received. But then we go to MKX, and things really started to blow up. Over 1,000, which was great for us. MK11, 1,500, we're kind of on the way up. And MK11, I mean, now you're 1,500, and that's kind of where things started to taper off. And that's really where Tekken and Street Fighter exploded upward and MK plummeted down. So MK9, things are looking good. MKX, things are looking good. And then when they decided to go the route of power, remove it, everything went down. So while MK has always been known for its power. Over the top characters, over the top specials, everything over the top. And that's always been its success formula. The minute it went away from that, you can see a direct plummet in the numbers. And Tekken and Street Fighter, they don't stray from their power. They've gotten better at doing power, not taking power. They've gotten better at giving it in a more modern way to where it's not like it used to be in the old days. And players have appreciated that. Meanwhile, NRS has taken it, and the numbers speak for themselves.
Also,
Yeah, I
speaking
can
of the
add on to
circle,
that a little bit. Oh,
yeah,
go
let me
ahead.
just give people, if you don't mind, speaking of numbers. So obviously, I was at CEO, so Tekken had the most, 640. Street Fighter about 615. Smash Ultimate was next in line with over 400. Guilty Gear with over, about 300. Brawler about 200. Grand Blue and Melee as well as Mortal Kombat 1 all crossed around, maybe about 100 players, each for those individual games. Go ahead.
So just going back to the power thing, I actually agree wholeheartedly on that because, like, if you look at Street Fighter, in Street Fighter 6, this Akuma is the most powerful version of Akuma ever. Like, they took what Akuma had in the past, like Street Fighter 4 and 5, and then they just added more on top of it. This Ryu in Street Fighter 6, they took everything Ryu had from the past and then added more on top of it. He has new moves plus all his old moves, you know? And it makes it fun to play those characters because it has the legacy aspect of it, but also something new, something more. But then, like, if you look at MK9 and MKX and then compare it to MK11 and MK1, they're actually doing the opposite. They're taking away tools, they're taking away power, they're being a little too conservative. Um, I can give like specific examples just to be like more clear. Like if you look at Kung Lao and like MK9 and MKX, like his dive kick launches for a combo, but then if you look at MK11, it splats, and MK1, same thing. a Reptile, his dash was way faster in MK9, and MKX recovered faster, started up faster, traveled across the screen faster. But then in MK1, much slower. His force balls don't go all the way like they used to. Sub Zero slide got slower. Ice Clone, more recovery frames, more startup. So it's like, I think they're being a little bit too conservative, where it's like they're trying to depower the characters as a means to balance them. Like, oh, if we make the characters as weak as possible, then it's easier to balance and make everyone fair. But I mean, it makes sense. But at the end of the day, it makes it to where it's kind of boring to use these characters. Like, it's way more fun when your characters have a lot of tools and a lot of strong tools. You know what I mean? You don't want to boil your game down to just something as simple as rock, paper, scissors. You want your game to be complex with a lot of options and a lot of depth. And that's why I think Mortal Kombat 9 and X, they're like the best Mortal Kombats ever because they're so crazy and in your face, and the characters, like MK9 and MKX, the characters had so many different armored launchers, not just launchers, but just armored attacks in general. Almost every character had like 3 or 4 different strings that launched. But then, like in MK11, every character only has like one string that launched. And a lot of those launchers, they launch you really far away. So, like, you can only combo in the corner, you can't even combo mid screen. So, it makes way less combo routes, way less possibilities for combos. So, in my opinion, what they should do, the next patch note, every character should just have a laundry list of buffs. Like every single cameo, just like lower the cooldown on a lot of moves, more ambushes instead of summons. A lot of characters should have like more plus frames, more launchers. Just like how they added attacks to like Reptile and Scorpion, add attacks to all the characters. This is my opinion. uh, the more things that your character can do, you're going to feel better playing that character. And you're going to be able to play that character for more time and learn things. You know what I mean? Uh, I'll give an example. Like, it's not Mortal Kombat, but Batman and Injustice, he's so complex. There's so many things you could do with him. I've been playing that character for years, and I'm still learning new things, like, every time I play the game. But then, in MK11, when I was playing like Gearus and Kung Lao and stuff, within the first couple weeks, I felt like I already learned everything there was to do with those characters. And then the months after that, I'm not really learning new things. Like, I'm learning matchup specific things, like, oh, this is how I use Gearus against Scorpion. This is how I use Gearus against Sub Zero. But I'm not actually learning new combo routes or new strategies with Gearus because he was so basic, you know? Um, so yeah, the next Mortal Kombat game, if they're gonna keep MK1 the way it is, I hope the next Mortal Kombat game, whether it's MK12 or MK2, whatever they want to call it, I hope it's not conservative like MK11 and MK1. I hope it's just crazy like MK9 and MKX were. And if they do plan on fixing MK1, making it like as good as possible, they just need to go ape shit on the buffs. Just like buff everyone. More more launching strings, more plus frames, more armor. Um, yeah.
I think you made an interesting point here with the power. I've always said this as well. Um, I wanted to, for perspective, because a lot of people will talk about, like, I want to give some numbers also as well, because I gave you MK's numbers. Let me give you Street Fighters and Tekken's. So a lot of people will say, well, the people, they don't want a broken game, etc. When MK was really giving power, let's look at MKX in 2015. While we had about 1,100, a little over 1,100, Street Fighter had about 2,200. Tekken 7 had 458. So we beat the stuffing out of Tekken 6, beat the stuff, it was the end of Tekken 6, we crushed Tekken Tag 2, and here we are crushing Tekken 7. And this is Street Fighter, Tekken, MK. They're all, Street Fighter and MK are within 1,000 of each other. And so not bad. MK had half a Street Fighter's entrance. If we had that now, we would take it. And crushing Tekken 7. Even in 2019, we go to MK11. Street Fighter had 1951, Tekken had 1800, Mortal Kombat had 1575. So they're all very. The MK got its name as the big three because even while Tekken's on its rise with Tekken 7, MK is still on the rise. Now, the reason why MK11 did this was basically because people didn't like Injustice 2. MK had a name because of MK9, because of MKX. They wanted MK back. There were high hopes for MK11. This was still early enough in the game where people were like, is it me or is the game a little watered down? So they were playing. Shortly after this Evo, the game took a massive dump from the first Evo to this to going forward. Like it just like, but of course people cope and blame COVID. But of course they can't blame that now. Some will maybe try to make the point, but it falls on deaf ears. MK, when it was at its most powerful, was able to compete because people love power in fighting games. Power is a double-edged sword. Power for a casual, it's great to have it. It sucks to be on the receiving end of it. So casuals love power when they can do it to you. They hate it when you can do it to them. But they still love it all the same. People, I think MK, people say, well, they did this as the casuals games, etc. I really think MK at NRS, they got somewhere in their mind that, to use your word, that to depower the characters. MK's always been known for its power. Let's power everything down as low as possible. Even in this game, the reason why people say the game is boring or it's MK has the lowest power level of any fighting game out right now. However, it's dominated by two characters right now, at least until Evo, we have to see, and like one or two cameos. So how does it have the lowest power level of any fighting game, but it's the only one where you see one or two characters repeatedly over and over and over again? And it's not even because those characters are very good. Those characters are actually terrible, but the rest of the characters are even worse. So when your two best characters are also terrible characters, you have an extremely boring game to watch and an extremely boring game to play. You don't think MKX had Alien versus Melina or Kung Lao versus Tanya or all this stuff? They had this. They had Omega power, and you even had some instances where you had multiple characters of the same character. MK9, we know it had power, but people weren't saying boring. Nobody ever said MKX was boring. Nobody ever said MK9 was boring. NRS has the biggest problem right now, even more so than balance. You made a video game and people's critique on it is it's not fun. There's no coming back when a game is not fun. I don't care how much money you put in it. If a game is not fun, that's what games are for. And there's no coming back from that unless they make it fun again.
I think as a community, um, as an NRS community, that we just have a difficult time even coming to the same conclusions. Like again, because a lot of people think that people like Tom is the problem. Um, then certain people think that the game is the problem, and certain people think that COVID is the problem. Certain people think, this and that is the problem. But I mean, but the numbers kind of speak for themselves. Like we talk about the big three. FGC talks about the big three, and what we mean by the big three, we usually mean Street Fighter, Tekken, and MK. But if you look at MK's abysmal numbers, I mean, if anybody is the big three, it's Guilty Gear along with Tekken and Street Fighter. And I think as a community, it's difficult to come to any conclusions. I mean, we have tried so hard, with all due respect to Tom, maybe me more so than he has, to get guests in the game who kind of disagree with us. They are running for the hills, folks. They are running for. They want nothing to do with us, because you already know why. Nobody can explain these numbers. Whether we come to the same conclusion or not is a different story. But we know these numbers are not acceptable, and I don't care what your content creators who have uh, hundreds and thousands of subscribers are telling you. These numbers are. This is not normal. It just isn't normal. So for people to say, yeah, I mean, it's fine, this is kind of what we were, what? It's like, no, this is not normal. Like, how can Tekken grow so much as well as Street Fighter? Yet MK, if anything, it's kind of like downgraded its numbers. Uh, so I think that's part of the problem. And so not only do we disagree about how the game should be played, we also disagree with what's the cause of all these problems. So I think that's the why there are almost no solutions. Uh, because we can pretty much can't agree on anything. And if you can't agree to anything, then if you're NRS, like who do you listen to? Well, probably the people who are telling you that you're doing a great job, even though you're not. Um, so we always talk about how the casual players, they speak with the wallets. Well, NRS, the tournament players have spoken with, with their with their incentive not to register for your tournaments. I was CEO. I didn't play MK. Why? The game is boring. Like it's just boring. Um, and it was also I haven't seen any. I didn't watch any game while I was there. But you look when I was there for the pools, looking for Tekken, packed. Street Fighter, packed. I'm talking about Knee and Daigo being like there. Well, Daigo was there, but talk about like just random pools. A lot of people watched my match. A lot of people watched my cousin's match on stream. Like people are interested in the game because it's fun to play. It's interesting to to watch. MK. I'm not saying there were no hype matches. That's ludicrous, but it was mostly like a ghost town. Mostly MK players only, and it didn't match the hype that the other games had. And I think for me personally, it's not WB. I'm not even sure, how much you can blame NRS. The game is just not that good. Like, I'm sorry. Like, that's the conclusion that I come to. I don't know how else you would come to anything else. Like, you can blame COVID, you can blame Tom and Mike Hollow and all this stuff. Like, but they don't make the game. I don't know, King. Am I too harsh or what do you think? Trying to be
So I do want to say, NRS is capable of making amazing games like Mortal Kombat 9. It's not just my favorite Mortal Kombat, not just my favorite fighting game. It's my favorite video game ever. And Injustice 1's up there, one of my favorite video games ever. MKX and Injustice 2, love those games both a lot. But yeah, MK11 was the start of they tried to balance the game by being really conservative. Like, let's depower the characters as much as possible, take away a lot of tools, take away a lot of combo routes, take away a lot of combo possibilities, take away a lot of options, and try to make the game fair and balanced by doing that. And then I think a lot of competitive players, they shared that same opinion. Like, hey, this game is kind of basic. Like, I wish it was more similar to like older MK games. But then they went and made MK1. It was kind of like the spiritual successor of MK11. I know it's not exactly the same, but if you compare MK1 to like MK9, X, and 11, it's the most like MK11, And I was personally hoping like before MK1 dropped, like when it was announced, I was like, man, every Mortal Kombat is different from every Mortal Kombat, so it's hard to guess what it's gonna play like. But I really hope it's gonna play like MK9. I think that'd be awesome. Or if not MK9, I hope it's gonna play like MKX. But then it played like MK11, and I was just like this, not just the lack of combos and options and stuff like that, but like, the walk speed, the speed of the strings are like pretty slow, stuff like that. I think Mortal Kombat was never really known for like, oh, this is like a footsie, patient, like Mortal Kombat was never known for that. That was like more Street Fighter's thing, maybe Tekken's thing. Mortal Kombat was always known for being crazy, balls to the wall, in your face. Like look at UMK3, MKX, all the 3D games, crazy. I think we need to go back to that. Like make Mortal Kombat crazy again.
Yeah, and I was linking people to Event Hubs. They have an article that says the numbers don't lie. People just aren't engaging with Mortal Kombat 1. And then Tweety also made a video about the evil numbers. And I quote, the game kind of looks like shit. And again, a lot of time, again, those content creators, as Tom calls it, the powers that be, will group everybody as a hater, right? Even just talking about these numbers, you're a hater. Like, but Tweety's not a hater. Like, how is that guy a hater? In one pops, they're not haters. Like, so people are just literally just making stuff up. For Tweety to make that statement, I mean, it's
Well,
un-
Tweety, I love as a content creator because he tries to kind of explain things without being like going in, like being overly negative. So I love it because he doesn't shill the game, and like he loves MK. Like he comes from a place of real love, which is why I love his channel, and I love to see his channel over 30K subs. I love seeing his channel continue to grow because he's one of the best channels out there for Mortal Kombat. But I hear him, and if you, he doesn't quite say it the way they do, but he does bring similar talking points. But I made a video about this where they do, where not just him, but he's brought this up like, hey, it is a Western game, so Tekken and Street Fighter at this point are probably always going to be bigger. So to be behind Tekken and Street Fighter, not a big deal. The real issue I have is it's behind Third Strike, and here's why I'm going to bring this issue up. We once had a co-host who used to constantly make the argument to myself and Dave that if they ever brought back a game like Third Strike or MVC2 in the modern era, it would not be accepted. And everybody would see the game from the broken mess it really would and complain about it. Well, they brought back Third Strike, and it beat the stuffing out of Mortal Kombat 1. And nobody is saying, oh, God, Third Strike, Ken, Chun-Li, broke. They're like, man, this game's awesome. They look at MK, they're not saying, thank God the game is so watered down, there's no power in it. Can't wait to play it. They're like, I'd rather not see this game. So it just goes to show you, even if you bring a game from the 90s, where all the games were quote unquote broken, people tell you, I'd much rather play this than MK1. So when people say nobody wants power, now in Third Strike, did people talk about Chun-Li and all that? Yeah, of course they did. All the time, right? Yun, they talked about balance. Every game people do that. But when push comes to shove, it shows you if people have to choose no power or extreme power, they'll choose the extreme power every single time. I think
I
yeah. I
that's
do
really
mean,
what I
also
get
think
from it.
yeah,
oh,
outside
go
of
ahead,
that,
please.
I do also think part of the numbers also has to do with legacy. You know, Tekken is a very legacy game. Street Fighter's pretty legacy. You know, like you could pick Ryu in every game. For sure, Yuken's always going to be the same motion. Hadouken, Tatsumaki, always the same. But Mortal Kombat, like when you go from Mortal Kombat 9 to Mortal Kombat X, Sub Zero's ice ball is like a different input. You know what I mean? His ice clone's a different input. The game is just completely different. And it's the same for MK11 as well, and even MK1. You know, cameo to no cameo. So uh, there's no legacy with Mortal Kombat. And
Interesting you
Justice was
say
a
that because
legacy.
Foxy Grandpa has oftentimes said MK has never changed from 9 until now. It's the exact same meta in every MK game. He said
It's
that
a
many
lot different.
times.
It's a lot different in my opinion. Um, so there's people that love MKX that don't like MK11. There's people that even loved MK9 that didn't like MKX. You know, because they're so vastly different. So that's going to make the numbers, you know, fluctuate for tournament registrations. Because like, if the games are so different from each other, you might have liked a
Well,
past
let
game,
me
but you're
ask you
not
this.
going to like a
Let
new
me
game.
ask you this really quick. He says that in when I talk about the poke, my turn, your turn, that those metas are similar. And in some ways it is, but the reason why it's not is those games had significantly faster mids, overheads. You had a lot more to do than poke. So you couldn't just micro duck, one size fits all, beat everything, move, you know what I mean? Like there was so many things to worry about because characters had so many tools. So in
All
theory,
right.
if you stripped every tool from every character in MK9 and MKX, it would be the same meta, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's what I was
basically,
trying to say earlier.
yeah. So yeah, I
That's what I
guess
was trying to
by
say
Foxy's
earlier.
point, like it is the same meta if you strip every tool away, but it's not the same meta because those games had so many tools. It really wasn't anywhere near the same game.
That's what I was just going to say. In MK9 and MKX, the characters had so much more tools and so much more powerful tools that it made more mind games because there's more options to choose from.
And let me also say this because this is a talking point. Well, literally, as we're talking, as we're speaking, our former co-host as well, who's typing, has made this point multiple times. Let me literally disprove it within like 5 seconds. Uh, why did this SF community show up when Street Fighter V launched in an absolutely final, in an absolutely dismal state? Let me tell you why. Because when their community requests changes, when that community offers feedback to Capcom, stuff changes. In fact, I'm not obviously, I don't claim to be, nor have I ever been in a position at Capcom, but you can argue that's probably why Ono got fired, because stuff was not the way it's supposed to be. I'm not saying people should be getting fired in any company. I'm just saying what happened. Again, just documenting what happened. Um, people complained about the input latency, fixed. People complained about the balance, fixed. People complained, why is this game so offensive? It needs a defensive mechanic, V shift, etc., etc. What has NRS done, even remotely, that fixes any of this issue? The meta, as Tom says, is supposed to be about watered down gameplay. Yet the game, you guys saw Final Combat. What was that? Like, they can't even get that right. The game is supposed to be, not high powered. It's supposed to be like, which is, it's supposed to be easier to balance. Yet Peacemaker and Johnny Cage and Chameleon just ran the show over and over and over again. The difference is Crimson, is that Capcom listens. Whether I agree with that or not is a different. I don't agree with a lot of the Tekken changes that that Namco is making, but they do listen. I think
Well,
that it's
hold on.
forward.
I can't let you throw NRS under the bus on this one. There's a reason why Capcom listens. Because when people talk about the input latency, you don't have toxically positive content creators saying, excuses, hater. In MK11, it took 10 people, Vendetta did it, J360 did it, to talk about the analog drift. They even figured out why it happened, made countless videos about it. Excuses, you don't know the game, stop blaming the game. Finally, Sonic made a video saying the exact same thing, and they were like, oh, this must actually be a thing. Despite countless people talking about an issue, it didn't until it affected Sonic Fox, and he goes, hey, you see my inputs? Like, I think the analog stick, unreal. It took a year to fix it, even though it was reported by multiple players, recorded by multiple players for a year. In Capcom, people say this is unacceptable, and things began to change. And we see that especially from 5 to 6. In Mortal Kombat and MK11, what happens is we're in the paycheck era. People talk about things that were for the first 2 years, I think we all had high hopes for the game. But once we saw the game was done and they weren't changing anything and it was going to stay the way it is, the last 2 years were rough. You still had these toxic positive content creators. Oh, just be patient, wait for the change. And when no change came, well, this is the best MK of all time. It's fine. And then the minute they couldn't make any more money off of this game and the next game came out, they said the game wasn't very good. It wasn't very fun for them. We got a content creator, not an NRS guy, but he's a big MK one. He has 1 million subscribers. And he made videos like going back to MKX, doing this, what's wrong with, and he started the whole what's wrong with MK1. And he said in this video, it was tough playing MK11, man. Like, he didn't enjoy it, didn't enjoy making videos for it, etc. A lot of content creators did that. And they'll continue saying MK1 is the best game of all time until the next one. And they'll say, well, actually, not so much. In the MK community, for some reason, you just can't be honest about it. You're considered negative or being a doomer. And if you say, well, look at these numbers, like, what does this mean? Oh, you're just being negative. I just don't, I don't understand why in our things don't happen because we don't allow it to happen. We have Aquaman right now on Twitter. Despite everything at Evo, instead of saying, you know what, we're going to have a good time, it is disappointing, I'd like to see better, says, oh, and people thought the game was dead, it's back. I've seen tournaments in MK1 and MK11 at the end days. Commentators, who said this game is dead, say multiple times. Games that aren't dead or dying don't need commentators or tweets to remind everyone the game is not dead. When Tekken 8 launched, I think Dave can admit as well, the community threw up on the game. We don't like it. It's this. Neem made his comments. Arslan Ash made his comments. There was a lot of debates. What should change? Is it too aggressive? All this stuff, right? Not a single commentator had to say when it got all these patches, and who said this game was going to die? Do you know why? Because the game wasn't dying. People don't need to, but NRS, commentators, the powers that be, the toxic positive ones, will constantly reassure you, who said this game is dead? It's not dying. It's more alive than ever. These are called positive affirmations. You only have to do that when you feel like shit about the situation. And Tekken doesn't need that. Street Fighter doesn't need that. I guarantee you, not a single time in the Third Strike tournament will somebody say, who says this game is dead? And that game came out in 1997. But yet we're saying it for MK1. And that game came out less than a year ago. It's tough when everyone sees the problem, but then everyone can say it. I have people in my DMs, top players today, who say to me, keep doing it, keep going. Because they don't want to say anything. They don't want to be labeled as negative or toxic or doomer. They don't want that negative on them by the community. But most people do agree with this. They're afraid to come forward and say it, either because how they'll be labeled or ruin future opportunity with NetherRealm. NetherRealm is not open to real criticism. They are only open to, yes, the game is great. The whole time the game is out, Tweety made a video that said maybe they should nerf the cameos and give all the sauce to the characters. Well, I haven't really called for cameo nerfs, but King said they should give the characters more sauce, power everyone up. Dave, you know I've been criticized multiple times by saying superpower everybody, right? And now we finally come, well, maybe this should be the answer. How is that not obvious from day one? That was the most obvious answer. And unfortunately, not many people, I'm glad Tweety made a video saying it, and I wish more would say this, but everybody knows that's the real problem. Everyone needs to be powered up. Instead, what's been happening? Nerf, nerf, nerf. Why? What do we hear? The toxic positive content creators say the game is in a great place. It just needed Peacemaker and Johnny to be nerfed. So what did they do? Did they listen to everybody else who was saying power everyone up? No. They said, oh, the game's in a good place. We'll nerf Johnny and Peacemaker. And that's what they did. They are listening to the yes men, to the toxic positive content creators. It's kind of a weird thing where the positive content creators are the problem, trying to mask it as the people critiquing the game for all the issues and what's happening. They're the problem. But this is a rare situation where all your toxic positive content creators, they're the problem. They're trying to assure you nothing is wrong with the game. There was a tournament organizer who, after Final Combat, went into damage control like every other content creator to literally tell you your brain cannot process the high-level play that you saw on the screen. That's why you think you didn't like it, but you really did. You just haven't realized it yet. What the fuck is that supposed to mean? The NRS gets too many mixed messages. I know for someone there in testing in MKX, for example, we were all unified on a common theme, and we didn't get off of it, and things got changed. The problem is, if we were to try to give Ed Boon or Paulo 10 different advice, 10 different suggestions that were contradictory, it's tough for them to know what feedback to take. When the game is launched, while you have a lot of people saying we don't like the game, the people that have 100,000, 500,000, 900,000 subs on YouTube, the ones who really get listened to, not the small fish like me. I'm insignificant. I'm irrelevant. No one cares what I have to say. I don't have a big following. But these people that get listened to, what do they say? It's the best game ever, Ed. This is the greatest MK ever. Just, tone it down some more. And that's who they listen to. So that's really the issue. It's an echo chamber the NRS has created under penalty of being blacklisted. They go to these people and they say, yes, best game ever. It's fine. Just keep nerfing some more things. Game's in a great place. So NRS is listening They're just listening to the toxically positive content creators who are just going to, yes, perfect place, great place, nothing is wrong. That's why nothing changes. They are listening. It's who they're listening to that's the problem.
Let me say this, then I want King to jump in. I first of all, the stuff Tom mentioned about DMs on Twitter have had the same similar discussions with people at CEO or have heard about them. They just don't want to say it because again, uh, they don't want to be deemed unprofessional or lose sponsors or ruin future job opportunities. So, but people, more people feel this way than than you folks may know. But let me say, this is somebody who I'm just going to quote. This is from Test Your Might. He posted he amplified shots, a bunch of tweets. Apparently, Scar. Quote: If I do in fact make it out to Evo, it will be my last time competing in MK. Perfect Legend says he's done with MK in the foreseeable future on the podcast with Mike Hollow. Chris G says we need to accept that NRS games are casual games and stop making a big deal about its competitive performance. He verbatim says, I get that we all wish the games would receive better, but maybe, just maybe, it's a casual game and that's okay. NRS game, that's what they are.
But the casuals don't even like it.
True, but I'm just, again, these are all just quotes.
True.
And then Zombie kind of expresses similar, talking points. So, King, before we move on, I'm going to give you the final word on this
Well,
topic. Then I
King, you
want
were
to.
there. You were at CEO, were you not?
No, he
No, I
was
didn't go
not.
to see you.
Okay. But you've been to tournaments since MKX, right? The end of MK11. And have you been to any MK1 tournaments?
Yeah.
Okay. Talk to me about the difference in the vibe, the hype, how excited people used to be when matches were going on versus how it is now.
Uh, it's hard to say. I mean, I feel like tournaments are always hype in person, but yeah, the if you want to compare like eras, I think the MKX era was definitely like one of the most hype, or if you want to include Injustice 2, that era was pretty hype as well. Um, but I just remember like going to like Combo Breaker for MKX, and we had a lot of entrants for 2015. I don't remember if it was 300 or 400, but it was a lot. And there was a lot of people that weren't even just NRS players, like Street Fighter players entering and stuff like that. And a lot of people were watching the stream matches and cheering and going crazy. Um, I think MKX was probably the hypest era, the beginning, like the first year of MKX. Um, but like going to tournaments now, it's still hype. There's still people cheering and stuff like that. Um, like for MK11, even though a lot of people consider MK11 to be like the most bland, when we went to Brazil, that was one of the craziest I've ever heard crowd
Oh,
cheer
they
for the
love
game.
MK over there. Which is why I was so shocked, which really says a lot. Like when you talk about the passion they have there, and then they had a 60-man, $10,000 tournament
Yeah, it's
for
that
MK1.
surprised me.
It shows how far it's fallen. Like even in the most passionate area, um, it's fallen.
So yeah, like the hype is like there, but yeah, it feels like it's not as high as the ceilings of the past for sure.
Dave, you went to CEO. How was it there? I wasn't there, but you've been to tournaments in the past, MKX, MK9, Injustice One. What was it like? Not just comparing the eras of NRS, but compared to how the rest of the FGC is now, and then the NRS scene.
I mean, I think at CEO there were, don't get me wrong, guys, there were definitely some hype matches. Um, go back and look at some of Burrito Voorhees matches using Gears on stream. Super hype. For example, um, against Samij, super hype match. Very, very fun to watch. Even Master D, my cousin, he doesn't give a damn about MK anymore, but even he was like, oh, wow, this is actually fun to watch. But aside from some, maybe like a handful of those, I mean, most people, like, I know it's going to be perceived as negative, but I assure you, I'm just telling you what happened. I was there. those 3 4 days in Daytona, and I'm telling you, most people, there were people. It was not that packed. Like I would watch, um, King Junior's matches, and I would
For
try to
all the
give him a.
games or just MK, it wasn't that packed.
No, it was just no for like Tekken. It was even some of the pool matches. Like people, there was like a swarm of freaking people like watching. Even some of my matches. I'm not even a high level player, guys. I went like 4-2 in Tekken. Like I didn't even enter MK. So, and some of the stuff, like my
So
cousin
you would
actually
say
he was.
the crowds were bigger for Tekken.
No, oh, absolutely. There's no question about that. Especially like on stream, the crowds was the crowds was like my cousin played. He played VDX, and you can check that out. It was streamed, and I kind of like gave him advice. You can see like the crowd behind us. People, and even the chat was like, apparently, they were cheering for VDX. Obviously, that's the name they realized. They were kind of like, booing Master D, which is understandable. So there was some hype involved. Even like Master D's not a high level player. Like I know FPDX is a name, has a dollar to his name to say the least. But I would say that those games were a lot more hype and there were a lot more people watching. But then that's kind of what happens, right? That's the difference between a game that has like what 100 players and difference in a game that has like close to 700 players. It's just how it is. Uh, but honestly, my take on this all, I liked your last video, and I also like what Mike says. Look, we have tried everything to address these issues. We've been doing it for a very, very, very long time. And honestly, it's as though we had never said anything, literally. Unlike, for example, for Tekken, where people speak up, Namco, I think they listen too much, but they do listen for sure. So does Capcom. Not too familiar with the other scenes. But it's for MK. How long have we been talking about archetypes, character archetypes? How long have we been talking about power levels? How long have we been talking about, stable, functional online gameplay? They almost fucked everything up. Like everything that I loved about MK, when I met King that one time in Cleveland when we got together, we played. I played as Kung Lao. I played my Freddy. Everything about that era is gone. Everything that I loved about the franchise is gone, absolutely gone, and there's nothing for me to enjoy anymore. And I think Mike said it best. Why would I waste my breath about something that I know they're not gonna listen anyway? So I'm just gonna stop making videos. So he moved on and he plays Tekken now mostly, right? Maybe some Street Fighter on the side. That's kind of what I have done as well. I don't even play MK anymore. I'm not a hater. I would love to go back, but just that there's nothing to go back to. And look at what these other players are saying, and they're like kind of saying the same thing, like Perfect Legend, as well as Scar. They're kind of like telling you what I'm telling you, like, and that's why. And the game can't survive without your best players, like it just can't. But NRS is a different vision, and maybe that's okay. It's a casual game, that's fine. Like, but there's nothing in it for me, and I'm moving on. Of
I do have some more things I can add. Um,
course.
these are things that can make the game more hype and more entertaining. For example, Street Fighter is all in your face. Like when you get a perfect, it shows up big on the screen, like perfect KO. Or when you get a perfect parry, the screen, freezes and it does like a cool color. Same with Tekken, like when you're about to like get the finishing hit, the screen slows down. Mortal Kombat doesn't really have that right now. And even when you get a flawless victory in Mortal Kombat, it doesn't even say flawless victory. The characters, it's just quiet, and the characters just walk back, and it says round two fight. Um, and people have been saying about the music for a while. I know music is like more opinion based, but the music for like MKX, MK11, MK1, um, it could be more exciting, you know? Even like in the Injustice series as well. That's one of my biggest criticisms is like the music is not that exciting when you compare it to like Deception music and Armageddon music, MK3 music, or like Tekken music is always great. Street Fighter music is
Nine
usually
music was
good.
good because they just remixed a lot of the good songs that we loved in MK arcade days. So they
So,
remixed the subway, remixed, the tower. It was very similar, only remixed. The armory. So it had that classic feel, but it was upgraded. But it had the cool songs we loved. And then I don't know what happened.
yeah, so I don't know if this could be considered gameplay, but in a way it is gameplay. I think like when you get a flawless victory it should be more hype. Like the announcer should yell it to you, or like it should show up really big on the screen, and the music should be more fast paced, more exciting. Um, they should bring Mercy back. Mercy is fun. It's hype. When people do, I was doing Mercies in tournament in MK11, and the whole crowd gasped, like, "Oh my god, I can't believe he's willing to do that." Um,
Yeah, I
I said
remember
this.
that.
I
Or
said this
like
before.
babies in MK9, right? I mean, you could tell when someone's going for it and they're like, is he really not blocking? You know, like, yeah,
Oh
it's the
yeah,
same thing.
look,
Yeah, it was the same
Mercy.
thing.
Mercy is. I'm assuming it's easy to implement because you're just restarting. Because babalities, they're awesome, but you got to make an animation for every character.
Hmm.
But mercies, I think that should be in every single Mortal Kombat going forward. You know, you just hold R2
Well, you
down,
got to bring
down.
friendship back then if you're going to do mercies. Got to be
Yeah,
a reason to do it. So they still got to animate. But I know what you mean. Yeah, either way. And flawless victory, by
yeah.
the way, like MK, that's so MK has got certain things you immediately associate with it, right? Stage, the pit, Mortal Kombat, right? Perfect, that could be any fighting game. Flawless victory, everyone knows Mortal Kombat. And they took such an iconic saying. MK has always done a great job of separating itself as a fighting game. From the music to the aesthetic to even how they announce things. And they're just like not just taking their power away, they're taking everything away from what made Mortal Kombat what it was.
I'm not sure why, but like in Mortal Kombat X, you were able to do these cool like combos into brutalities. Like as you're comboing and it says finish him, you can keep going. But then like in MK11 and MK1, they do this slowdown because like they're trying to make it look dramatic, but this slowdown it like messes up your combo, which like messes up your brutality. I think they should maybe just go back to how it was in MKX where you don't have that slowdown. And you know, so people could do their brutalities. Their brutalities are fun, they're hype. Oh, another thing too, in tournament mode, all brutalities should just be unlocked automatically. Because at tournaments, not everyone's gonna have every single brutality unlocked on every single PS4 or PS5. They're probably not gonna have none of them unlocked. They're probably just, it's random people bringing their PS5s to the tournament. So on streams, you're never going to see brutalities. In MKX, there was an option where you could just pay $20 and just automatically unlock every brutality in the game. They should either bring that back so that when we have like big tournaments like Final Combat, all brutalities are unlocked for a tournament play, or just tournament mode, all brutalities by default. I'm just trying to name things that can make the game more hype and fun.
Absolutely, I think you're right about those things, but I think fundamentally they're gonna have to do more than just that. And obviously, I think those things do matter, right? Like, for example, the slowdowns in Tekken, right? It kind of adds that a little bit of hype for sure. Maybe not a little bit, sometimes a lot. And it kind of like improves the not necessarily the playing experience, but like the viewing experience. And several contactors have talked about that, especially Tweety, how the game, and I quote, looks like shit when talked about, little Johnny's watching Sonic Fox, and why would little Johnny be motivated to watch anymore after seeing the same two characters, the same two cameos being used over and over and over and over again? You spamming the same moves over and over and over again. Um,
But it's
that's really
why
what.
that is. I think even if those characters were super powerful, it wouldn't be boring. People would say there's only two super powerful characters, they're broke, etc. Problem is, Peacemaker and Johnny Cage are two of the least powerful characters ever created in the history of fighting games. And they're the two best in this game. So you have two garbage characters going at it. So little Johnny, the problem is, it doesn't even excite him to play. Not because I wish I saw more characters. These are the two best characters. This is the best the game could look. And even it still looks like garbage. So like it's just
I'm
not in
gonna
its place.
I'm gonna quote my good friend Michelangelo. He said, like in the older NRS games, MK9 and Justice One MKX, when you see a high level player fighting a low level player, you can tell. Like when he would invite friends over his house, and they're like, "Let me see, you're a tournament player. Let me see, like, prove it," kind of thing. You got Zod doing all these crazy 45% combos into insta-air fireballs. Run cancel characters in MKX. Cabal doing all this crazy stuff. Like you can see the skill gap. But then like in MK11, if you took like a high level player against a low level player, it doesn't look that crazy. Like the high level player is gonna win, but you just see like a lot of down ones and throws,
A
and
lot of
it's
down
more
ones and
so
throws. Yeah.
it's more so like these micro decisions that the top players are like winning more at, but it doesn't look that crazy. Like you're just like, all right, the higher level player won, but it doesn't look that dominating. And that's what Michelangelo is saying. Like, I want it to look like they're dominating you. If someone's better than you, it should show. You know what I mean? Like, you should be able to tell easily.
And people are going to
Um,
say, well, you're saying the high
No,
level player will still dominate the low level player. But you're just saying
but
visually, they're dominating them with throws, ducking highs, down ones. The high level player is dominating them with basics, right?
yeah,
Shimmying them into a combo. Like if you watch the high level player, even against the mid level player in MKX, it looks like the mid level player can't even move. They can't even play
yeah,
the game or they can't get near you. You know what I mean? If you watch, for example, a mid level player go up against Rio's Cabal, it
oh yeah,
looks
it's
like
domination.
what is this, right? Um,
It's
right?
domination.
Or like if you or PL are playing Lao or Cage, right? It's like what is going, or it's same in MKX, right? If you watch, like what is going on? Like they can't even move, and it's not that they can't move, it's that there's just so much,
It's because the characters are so powerful, and the high level player knows how to use that huge power gap.
and they're
You
not
know,
able to control that power. It'd be like in MK9, we know how powerful Cabal is. But if you take an average player and give him Cabal, he'll be horrible. He'll because he can't control the character, he can't do what the character can do. He can't do even the basics the character can do. Because the basics are so advanced. Whereas in this game, if you can down one, you can mid, you can throw, you can backdash and micro duck. That's every character.
so I'm
Uh,
glad you mentioned that because let me give you an example at CEO. So if you guys watch Keisuke plays, currently the best Kazuya player in the world, um, when he was wave dashing, not even doing anything, crowd was fucking cheering. They loved it. I loved it too because first of all, he consistently doing it, especially at that level, with that with that pressure, thousands of people watching you, probably most people can do electric now if they play someone seriously, but like try doing like out of wave dash consistently. It's not easy. It's very, very hard. So when they saw that, people like they were just cheering. There's almost nothing like that in MK. Almost nothing. Like what are you gonna see in MK? Somebody spamming low hag grenades and chameleon now? Like it's so boring. The game lacks complexity. The game lacks depth among many other things. So when they play Street Fighter and Tekken, when he goes for that taunt, jet upper, crowd goes crazy because they know it's difficult to do. Not everybody can do it, and it's just hype to watch. I'm not a Kazuya player. I love
But
watching him
power
talk about.
gives you that complexity. Like when you have
No,
more power, you have more power gives you more things to do, which makes things more
but it does.
complex.
But I think correct. But I think those kind of go hand in hand to your point. But the point is, the bigger point is that the crowd loved that. Like they were getting hype, um, because
more
that's
so
not.
high
Yeah,
execution,
yeah, more
like
execution.
the Daigo moment, like Evo, what is it, 37 or 38? Stuff
37,
like
I think.
that. You know how hard that is to do,
Yeah.
so it makes you hype watching it.
But that's the point. Like, and that also goes with legacy, right? Well, yeah, when Doja was using Leo, people were like, what is going on right now? Like, I know she's been in the game since Tekken 6, but um, not everybody plays Tekken religiously like some of us do. So they were like, okay, like the crowd was like, okay, I can tell if he's a good player. We're like, I don't know what to get hyped for. But that's literally MK in almost every single game, right?
But
Because
it's
they
not just
change.
execution. Like it was not easy to do things, right? Like if we bring up MK9, there's so many different play styles, right? I play Rio or other Cabals, Kerbo. They're trying to zone me, or Dave. They're trying to zone me out all day with Sub Zero. I don't let them near me, but it's stuff I have to chase them. If I play someone like King, he's Kung Lao, he's all over the screen, or maybe play Cyrix, try to one touch me. There's so much. So even when the execution necessarily isn't like a Cabal level, there's so much going on that it's not boring, and down one is not on anyone's mind, or throw or whatever, or microduck. There's so much going on. So it's tough at the high level to get around it, to fight it, to do it, to use it. Whether it's execution or characters that have just more options in certain situations or whatever, there's so much going on. And it's tough to fight against, tough to defend against, tough to use, even at high level. For example, Freddy is a very powerful character in MKX. I mean, MK9. If you take an average player and have them play Freddy, they'll absolutely get annihilated. Annihilated. This is a powerful character. They'll get absolutely crushed. We saw a situation where there's a player who's actually considered good in MK9. Play Cabal and he lost to Shiva, considered the worst character in the game against the best. You know, and we saw another player play Kenshi, also get beat by Shiva. And these are the top two characters in the game in the same tournaments, beaten by Shiva. The worst. And this is a game that's supposed to be oh so broken, oh so this. Even when you have access to that power, it's not easy to use it and dominate. It's not. And this game, it's not even that people have access to power. They have access to ease of use and effectiveness, but it's not power. These are some of the worst. I want to say this game might have less power than MK11, and it's even got an assist, which is unbelievable to me.
Somebody on Testament was trying to convince me that the low tiers in MK1 would beat up on the low tiers in MK9, and it's just that's what I mean. These people are just like
If
there's
you
so
put
many,
MK9 Shiva in this game, she would be a goddess. And in that
especially with
game,
an
she
assist,
was nothing.
especially with an assist, right?
Yeah.
You give you give sub MK9 Sub Zero an assist in this game, MK1, oh my god. You give him an assist at MK9, he could be probably top tier. Like it's crazy, right? So people just don't know what they're talking about. Again, there's a lot of misinformation. Not that I know everything, I don't claim to, but it's like this is the reason. Again, goes back to NRS. Listen to all these points. They don't know who to listen to. Like Tom said, they listen to completely wrong people. Um, but let me kind of switch gears because honestly, I'm kind of like on Tom's and Mike's approach. I really don't enjoy watching the game anymore. If my friend plays, Franco played, I obviously will support him. But it's like I really don't care about the game. I really really don't. I think the game is incredibly boring. It's just slightly better than MK11, in my opinion, the worst game ever made, at least in the modern era. So I'm not really interested about it. I want to ask King an actual question that I actually care about, which is I think we talked a little bit on the phone about it was amplified shots again, talking about all these sponsored players, obviously Tekken and Street Fighter and Smash, there are multiple of them. But like how can somebody, for example, like me, I went to CEO, I went 4-2, or even you as you're getting older, how can we compete with players like that? When we have a job or maybe we have a wife or maybe even children, when these people are playing 8 hours a day, we can only afford to play, I don't know, maybe 2 hours every day, if even that. So what's the future? What does the future hold for players like us?
I mean, it's really hard. Also, not only because the amount of time played, but also the scope of the competition is just getting much harder. Um, back in the day, like MK9 and Justice One, MKX, I remember playing in pools and just dominating. Like there was never a thought in my mind that I wasn't going to make it out of pools. You know what I mean? And part of it was I was much better at those games than I was closer to the top than the current games. But MK11 and MK1 when I'm playing in pools, the average player is just so much better. Like even when I'm making it out of pools, I had some tough fights. So I feel like just the average pool monster is way harder nowadays than back then because there's just so much more information accessible on the internet. Like, back in MK9 and Injustice 1, there was no videos that taught you how to understand frame data and stuff like that. But nowadays, there's so many videos that teach you frame data, teach you character guides, what to do with this character. knockdown setups. You know what I mean? It's way easier to get high level nowadays than back then. So the average low level player is way better than the average low level player back then. So
I
not
want to
just
bring
it's
up a
not only
point to that. I want you to weigh in on this too to go along with that.
okay.
The entry level is much higher, but I also think another part of it is they have less to deal with. Because here's what I mean by that. If I take the same average player now and they go up against Peacemaker, Broke Maker is back. Zone. They don't even come anywhere near. The average player today literally quit game like Injustice 2. Oh, Injustice. The zoning is back. They couldn't get around mediocre power. If you take today's average player and have them have to fight some of the power in the past games, they would just quit. They think Peacemaker zoning is broken. What do you think is going to happen if they fight Freddy? They'll quit. So how much better are they really if they would rather quit the game than fight power? I
True.
think
Yeah,
it's
I think it's a little bit of both. I think
yeah. I think a
the
little bit of
average
both. Yes,
the average low level player is better just because it's easier to be better with all the information on the internet nowadays.
and there's
But
less to deal
if
with.
I, yeah, the older games, the power is so high that it's if you're good at the game, it's way easier to be consistent and beat someone that's lower level than you. When I played MK9 or MKX, just like the first round, I can kind of get a feeling like, oh, this guy, he has no chance. Like this is gonna be a 3-0. Just by the way they move and the decisions they make. But in MK11 and MK1, since we're so like boxed in with the small amount of options we have, the small amount of possible decisions we have to make, yeah, I guess it makes it kind of feel like anyone can be scary in a
Well, let me ask
sense.
you this. Let's take an average player today and let's give him Johnny Cage and MK9. I can go to X2 if we need to. Uh, uh, Johnny Cage is a very high level, very powerful character, correct?
Yeah.
And then have him go up against Cabal at the highest level. What do you think happens?
Oh, it's 10-0.
Okay,
They gave out.
but now have him go up against Johnny, a top tier character in this game, significantly closer, right? It's harder to beat them. So,
Yes.
and all that average player would do is tell you how broken the game is. The zoning is broke, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so can I be accurate in saying that the real reason is in these games here today, like MK, is that NRS has done a bad job teaching average players what a fighting game really is. Whereas other communities are more likely to accept power. NRS has kind of gone with 4 years of MK11, and 1 year of this game. It has kind of taught their players that you don't need to put up with this broke zoning. I mean, you've heard it, King. How many people talk about how bad Injustice 2 was because of all the zoning? How many people say this? Many, correct? And they talk about
Yeah.
how they quit the game because of how busted the zoning is. Injustice 2 is a watered down Injustice 1 as far as like Zod zoning is
Oh, for sure.
significantly better than zoning in you know what I mean? In Injustice 2. Zoning
Sinestro.
Sinestro, zoning in MK9 is significantly more powerful. So if you take them and say you think Peacemaker's busted, put them against Freddy, I'll even give them a powerful character. They would be like, no, I don't come on, whatever. It is, and it's not even about zoning, because then if you gave the average player Cabal and then said beat Johnny Cage at the highest level, what would happen to the average player?
Oh yeah, if you're just like a mid-level cabal, Dizzy's gonna 10-0 you with Johnny Cage,
Okay, so if you give the average player, a today average skilled player, Johnny Cage against the high level Cabal, they get beat 10-0. Flip it and then give the average player Cabal and have him fight a top tier Cage player, they still lose 10-0. So even the power dynamic just shows that if you give them extreme power, they can't control it. And if you have to teach them how to get around the power, they have no chance, because there are certain things they just label, I don't know how to deal with it, and I refuse to deal with it. MK1 says, I'm just not even going to put it in the game. They put it a watered down version of it in Peacemaker. They called it Broke Maker, zoning. I mean, what is this, Injustice 2 again? There's no chance an average player today has a chance of even being competitive with that kind of power. More than likely, they would quit. The ones that stick around would learn how to use that power, become exceptional players, and the scene would grow and accept there are certain things in fighting games that must be present for them to work. What I want has to be in there. What you want has to be in there. I hate what you want. I hate fighting it. It sucks. It's annoying. But it needs to be there for a good game to be present. Same as things that I like need to be there. Everybody hates everybody else's shit. Period. It's all annoying, but it's fun at the same time. It's not that the average player has gotten better in NRS, but they've been kind of babied by NRS. So the minute they encounter an obstacle, get it out. Broke Maker, we want him gone. They couldn't handle Johnny Cage in this game. This game. And I think you would admit Johnny Cage in this game is just a watered down cut and paste of 9, is he not?
100%.
So how are they going to handle the powered up version if they couldn't handle this version? And they had an assist to help, and they still couldn't handle it. So in the end of the day, it's that, yes, players are better than ever as far as the average level, but they are not taught how to overcome certain things. So because of that, the minute they encounter it, they don't learn how to use it. They don't learn how to get away to deal with it. They just want it gone. And NRS has kind of trained 5 years of this. That's tough to undo. So if NRS went the opposite direction, I don't know how well it would go.
I don't think this is an NRS problem. If you ask me, I think this is a modern fighting game problem. Uh, Pros used to track in Tekken 8 on release. Why don't they anymore? We know why. Because casuals can't escape throws. It's one of the harder things to do in Tekken, and it takes years of experience. So the better you make throws, well, they also hate King, but that's another story. The better you make throws, the harder it is to beat players who can escape throws, like, and you can't. Think about how much of an advantage that is when you play a game of Tekken, right? So if you throw me, I can escape him 80% of the time. When I throw you, you can't escape him at all. That's a major difference in skill, which will result accordingly, you know, in different,
Win loss
win.
ratio.
Correct. Thank you. So I don't think this is. NRS gets a lot of criticism from me, but this isn't just that one. And Namco literally did the same thing. Like, yeah, who's crying? Who was crying? Not even some of the casuals, even some of the intermediate players. I think, and so they did what they had to do. Literally go back and redesign King to an extent, give him like a easier wave dash, so he can track better with the throws, but within a wave dash now instead of just tracking, some of just the throws tracking themselves. you know, People may agree or disagree with that, but so obviously they had a certain gameplay design in mind from the very, very beginning, but that they had to adjust because people were crying. So when I criticize people like Main Man Sweets for a reason, he was one of the people crying about that. It's like, why does it matter? If you know how to break throws, you know how to break throws. Certain stuff did have to change about the throws, but if you counter throw with somebody, it was super, super, it was essentially inescapable. So they added more frames, and now it's more manageable. But the point is, it's not just NRS who's doing it; it's all of them. All of them are doing this
But the
to
difference
cater
is
to
those
the.
games didn't remove all their power. They, at a certain point, they said, you're going to have to deal with it to a certain point, right?
I think.
Whereas NRS
Uh,
is like, okay, we'll take it out.
I think I agree with you, but I think you're missing the complexity issue as well. Because Tekken is fundamentally a far more difficult game to play, but it's also, when you play MK1, like, what are you actually doing? You're just essentially just spamming assists and into strings and special moves. That's literally what Cage is. That's literally what Peacemaker was when he was running wild. Now, obviously, he's been over nerfed and now he's essentially shit. But what do you think Torpedo into Knives was? It freezes you. Everybody can do it. Requires no skill, and people hated it. But not everybody can do some of that stuff that's obnoxious in Tekken. Like in fact, very few people can. But yet the results are fairly consistent among the community, right? Again, that's why I criticize these content creators. Like, who's winning with random heat engages into 50-50? Who is? Give me names. The same people who won in Tekken 7 are winning currently in Tekken 8. There's no difference. So again, there's a lot of misinformation going around, and unfortunately, when it gets to the developers and they read it and they make dumb changes as a result, the game suffers and people are unhappy. King, I'll give you the next word on this. Go ahead, please. You there?
King, you there
Yeah,
still?
sorry.
Yeah, yeah, no worries.
What were you gonna ask?
No, I was just like it has to do with. I don't think NRS is the only guilty fighting game company. Trying to
Oh
change
yeah.
specs to please the casual gamer. I don't think this is an NRS issue. No, they obviously did the worst offenders, but not they're not the only ones.
No, I do agree that just this era of fighting games in general is more like, like Street Fighter 5 and Street Fighter 6 is easier to like play and compete than Street Fighter 4 was, like less one frame links, less execution.
Yeah, I
And
do
from
want
what
to
I've
say
heard,
this. I do want to say this as well. I want because I really.
But
So
can't you
Tom
do
is
that
right.
without removing power?
Well, hold on.
y-
Let me say this. Let me say this real quick. Uh, so Tokido talks about this because he was interviewed by Justin Wong. And let me tell you how the old fighting games went. And honestly, I don't care if people disagree because this is just a fact. This is literally what Tokido says, and I think this is 100% true because I went through it. In the old games, the power levels were a little bit too high because who did Tokido use Super Turbo? Also got. Or actually, he used Vega. And if you play the game and you play Claw, you know how obnoxious that shit is. Um, he used essentially the top tier in every fighting game from the old days, right? He used I forget who I think he used Urian or Cannon, Third Strike, etc., etc. In the old games, if you knew which characters to pick and you were actually good at the game, and the other guy was not, and he didn't know which character to pick, and he was not good at the game, it was essentially 10-0, like nonstop. They couldn't even win a fight.
No chance. Even if
It
they were
was
average level,
no,
they had no chance. Yeah.
yeah,
Zero
exactly.
point zero
No,
chance. Yes.
0.0 chance. So obviously, return of play, that's great for you because now nobody can in the pool challenge you. The only people who can challenge you are like the people,
On your level.
who are, yeah, at your level. So what that means is if I'm playing MK9 and I know Freddy
There are no
and I
upsets
know what,
possible. The game protects
yeah,
you as the high level player.
exactly. When I went to pool that MK9, I just literally 5 minute scam. No, these people have no chance. They can't get it on zoning. In order for them to get around that zoning, they have to be at my level. They have to know the matchup. They have to know everything about the game. But they don't, and that's why they get smoked, right? Even when I played very strong players like Chris G, I beat him at Evo. Denzel, I beat him at Evo as well. Um, and I beat other high level players as well because I know they didn't know
Herbalicious.
the matchup. Kerbalicious, he kind of knew the matchup. I think he just didn't play it right. I happened to outplay him, but the point is,
Tournament nerves.
yeah, the point is that unless they knew exactly what they were doing, exactly from head to toe, then they had to know the matchup. They're just gonna get blown up, and that's essentially what happened in the old game. It's just MK9. You can name any other game. So what happened was that the people who were really good at the game, they were dominating everybody. The people who sucked, they couldn't adjust. And like King was said,
That was the
there's
complaint, though,
no
of a lot of average players that the power was so high that they
yeah.
felt like they had zero chance because they did. So obviously, for the high level player, it was great because the game is protecting you from the average player even upsetting you. Rain once said in Tekken 6, I don't know if people are familiar with Rain, he said, the way the old games were, why even hold a tournament? Just give the best player his prize and go home because he was going to win. Uh, and because a lot of times they would, meaning that you don't see these upsets at an average or even above average level. He was trying to say that an above average player is no different against the high level player than a scrub. That the worst player in the world fares just as that an above average player fares just as poorly against the high level player as the worst player on the planet. There is no difference. That's how badly they are beaten because of how high
All
the
right.
power level is.
And guys, there was no internet
Power
to
was
save
quite
you
high, yeah.
because videos were scarce. Yeah, there was no ranked for you to level up because online gameplay sucked It's fighting against
But it's great for the high level player, right? Because you have
So that
no
means
chance of losing unless there's someone is your level.
correct.
And I mean,
So that's
I
why,
stress
yeah.
that, guys listening. An above
So that's why,
average player had literally 0.0 chance of beating you because what you were doing was so powerful. They had to know it down to its finest detail, which if they did, they wouldn't be just above average. So they had no chance of beating you. And
correct. So the reason
yeah,
I beat the Denzel at Evo is because I play Perfect Legend. He's in my backyard. I play King. Like, why do I care about Kung Lao? Like, I already know the matchup. I know it much, much better than he ever did. So of course I'm gonna beat him, right? That's why I beat a lot of other Kung Lao players. Unless they were Perfect Legend, possibly King, I didn't really give a damn about Kung Lao because I know the matchup. They don't know the Freddy matchup. Who are they gonna practice Freddy with? My level of zoning. Nobody. Who are they gonna practice uh, Tom Brady's turtling Sub-Zero style? Nobody. Unless you play him, you don't know it. You know nothing. Um, who are you gonna practice Cyrax with? Unless you played Maxter, possibly Han and GG, GG at that point. No, you're just gonna get smoked, and that's how the games work. So I think people deserve to know that as well. It was a different era
different
of fighting
time.
games,
But
different
I
era,
feel like
different time.
Street Fighter and Tekken have found a balance to keep power as well as ease of use without making the average player feel like they're going to get 10-0, like the power is too high, right? Mortal Kombat overcorrected and put the power so low that it's to the point of not amount. I'm not saying the average player is going to fight Sonic Fox or Ninja or someone like that or Nicolas. What I'm saying is it's to a point where nobody cares. It's that boring. So it's in a boring place to people don't even like watching it. So they overcorrected. MK needs to bring its power back. Maybe it doesn't need to bring MK9 and MKX power back, but it needs. I would probably say this game needs to triple its power level, and it would still be underwhelming compared to the past MK games.
What were you going to ask me earlier, Mario? You said my name, but then we got sidetracked with other stuff.
No, no, yeah, I was just. It was mostly about the subject about how you feel um about the power level in terms of, like, how things used to be and how things are right now, and how much easier it was. I know I joke when I talked to Tom Brady. I was like, dude, King, he loved pre-patch X Quan
Oh yeah,
unless, unless you knew exactly, not that you could defend that piece of crap, but like you had, there are obviously players who could better do than others. Nobody in pools was ever going to block that, right? It was essentially
free
a
wins.
yeah, exactly. And I
It was
know
too
this thing.
powerful. What you're saying, yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah,
yeah. I felt the same. A lot of times, I felt the same way about Ice Clone. So, because to me, I'm like, the problem is for the average player, Ice Clone breaks a lot of their habits. It makes it tough for them because you know how it is, King. The average player in pools are like, I'm not going to be controlled. You don't know what I'm going to do. I might want to get up and mash or delay or get up and jump, or I might armor. I'm crazy. You're not going to control me. Ice Clone beats every single option simultaneously. It's about acceptance. You will do nothing because you can do nothing. It's like watching an episode of John Wick. It's a direct quote. It's literally like that. And you just have to accept it, right? That's just kind of how it is. And casual players are like, but why? Or like when Liu Kang is on top of them. No, bad news. Do not pass go. Do not collect $100. So whether it's a characters can oppress you both offensively, both defensively, on knockdown. You can't jump. It's tough to approach, or because of grappling, because they have command throw. Even Kotal Khan, they buffed him pretty good. In some matchups, he can be very irritating. You know what I mean? So there's a good level of power that you're just like, in pools, there's no way people are going to be disciplined enough to fight this. There's no way, because they just don't have the discipline to deal with it. They want to do what they want to do. Quan Chi doesn't even need to know the game. He just needs to know the game once he hits you. And once he does, the odds of somebody getting out, even at the highest level, is still very difficult, let alone at a casual level. So it's basically, if you're at the highest level, it's a free way out of pool. That's how a lot of games were. And let's be serious, we like that because it favors the high level player. However, they did overcorrect. I really want King, who's played them all. Very few people have played them all from 9 till now. You've seen the gradual power correction. How do you feel about where they were to where they are now? They went too far. What about the game do you think was overcorrected? As far as like we talk about all the power stuff, obviously people are not going to accept MKX, MK9 power. Where do you think, if you were to make the changes, how would you uh, correct some of the things in this game? And what do you feel like would be like an acceptable power level to where people don't feel like, wow, what am I fighting? But they still don't feel bored of the game.
So I could be a little biased because, like I said earlier, Mortal Kombat 9 is like my favorite game of all time, and Mortal Kombat X is my second favorite Mortal Kombat. But obviously, so I would say MKX actually made the power go up from MK9, and then MK11 was a huge drop down. Injustice 1 had a lot of power, and then Injustice 2 was a drop down, not a big drop, well, kind of a big drop. Um, Honestly, I would say I know it's not Mortal Kombat, but I think Injustice 2 was almost the perfect, like, there was strong stuff in that game, but it still felt fair. Like, nothing felt unfair, but Injustice 2 didn't feel like how, like, MK11 and MK1 feel, where it's like, oh, like, the characters are kind of so watered down that I don't really have that many options. Injustice 2 had a lot of sauce, but at the same time, it felt fair. So I don't. It's not Mortal Kombat, but it's from the creators of Mortal Kombat. I think Injustice 2 had that balance of power versus ease of use versus fairness. Out of all the NRS games, I think that one nailed it the best. Um, Out of the Mortal Kombat games, Mortal Kombat X and Mortal Kombat 9, the power is like 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10. And then MK11, the power is like 2 or 3 out of 10. And then MK1's maybe like 4. So I guess like more powerful than MK1, but then like less powerful than MK9. Like meet somewhere in the middle, you know? That'd be my best
I know,
suggestion.
yeah, I know you got to leave, so but I want to ask you maybe one or two last questions, then we let you go. Don't you think that Injustice, at least Injustice 2, kind of plays too slow? Look, I'm a zoning player, but I think the game plays a little bit too slow. I think if Injustice 3 is their next game, I think they have to speed it up. Don't you agree?
Yeah, so I actually said this like many years ago. So Injustice 1 had a really slow walk speed, but really cracked out dash speeds, like unreactable dashes, crazy fast. But Injustice 2, they slowed the dashes down and then they buffed the walk speeds a lot. So Injustice 3, I thought it would be cool if it had like the walk speed of Injustice 2, but the dash speed of Injustice 1. And not just any walk speed, like take like the fastest walk speed, like Catwoman in Injustice 2, her walk speed, and then maybe like the dash speed of like a Batman in Injustice 1, like super fast. And Injustice 3, that would be a fast game if they did that. And then
Yeah.
lower the stage length because a lot of the stages in Injustice 2 were really long. Like you can walk backwards and run away for a long time, which made zoning stronger. Yeah, decrease the stage length, increase the walk speed and the dash speed. Injustice 3 could be fast, but still say legacy to Injustice.
Yeah, and I think NRS is like a problem historically, not just with modern games, but in general, with all corrected things, right? We talked about, think about like MK2, right? Like very zoning heavy, right? Kind of very slow. And then what do we have? MK3, which is like, wait, what? You add a ramp button, now everybody's like, now everybody's essentially Flash. So I think historically they have a problem with trying to find a balance of how a game should be, in terms of gameplay styles, in terms of power levels. So hopefully, whatever the next game is, they have learned something from MK11 as well as MK1, and they make the proper adjustments, even if they're just listening to the wrong people. But King, I know you gotta run here soon. We appreciate your time. Give us your last word. Any shouts out you want to make? Now's your chance.
And will you be competing again, or is this kind of like playing for fun, love of the game, and your competitive days are more behind you?
Yeah, great question.
Yes. So MK1, I obviously tested, so I wasn't allowed to compete. Um, the next NRS game, if they do invite me to test back, I probably will take that. You know what I mean? Um, remember, I was talking to them over there, and they're like, "Man, I'm surprised that you wanted to choose this over competing and stuff like that." And I was like, "Look, I've been competing for a long time. I'm getting older now. I feel like obviously I could have. We all wish that we did more and made more accolades and this and that, but I feel like I made a solid legacy for myself. So if I had the decision to like test permanently or like test every game and like not compete anymore, I would make that decision 100%. But even if I'm not testing, definitely gonna see how the game plays. I really hope the next game is Injustice 3, to be honest with you. I liked how we swapped like MK and Justice. So I was hoping after MK11, I was hoping we were gonna get Injustice 3. Um, if it's Injustice 3 and it's actually a legacy game, I think I'll be competing 100%. If it's Injustice 3, but they change it a lot, it depends what they change and how much and how good the changes are. Um, so yeah, I guess it all depends. I would love to compete. I would love to. My competitive drive is there. It just depends what the game is like. Um, but yeah, I guess shout outs to everyone who's watching. Shout outs to everyone who loves Mortal Kombat and Injustice. If anyone on my YouTube channel is watching, what's up? What's up? And thanks for having me, guys. It was a good time.
Thanks for joining
Yes,
us,
thank you.
King. Appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here with us. With that said, folks, you know the deal. Give us your comments in the comment section of YouTube. We appreciate all you guys listening in as always. So I'm your co-host M2 Dave. I'm here with my co-host M2 Dave, Forever
Th-
King, was our guest. Thank you so much for listening. Tom, any last word on your part?
No, not at all. I think for me, fighting game wise, I doubt I'll even cover fighting games anymore on my channel. You might get Diablo 4 instead, guys. So hope you're okay with that. But I just, I think I'm done with MK1. It's just time for me to accept this is where MK is going this route, unfortunately. And it's not going to change. I know it's not going to change. So no more suggestions, no more what should happen because I know it will happen. So onward to other things.
Peace out, everyone.
Later, guys.